The clock is now running on the Playbook podcast, the podcast where you take a deeper dive into the game of business, leadership, teamwork, character, the things that drive your motivation and build dedication. When you get a good look at the game plan of great business leaders, you start to formulate your own playbook and your own rise to the top. Make your next play your best play. And now, here are today's game captains, Glenn Amaral and Andy Phillips. Let's go!
Welcome back to the Playbook podcast. I'm Andy Phillips. Joining me, as always, is Glenn Amaral. Glenn, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
We have another good guest, as always, and one directly tied, actually, to this podcast, which we will get into. But first, do you have a pregame question for me?
Yeah. So in light of our guest today, I'm going to ask you a marketing question.
Okay.
How do you deal with the challenges of social marketing and your own personal branding?
Good question. I think the challenges are you want everything you put out to age well. And I think we're seeing that more in today's day and age is there's no room for past mistakes. So I think you have to make sure anything you put out is going to age correctly. It's going to, whether it's a tweet, whether it's a Facebook post, whether it's a LinkedIn post, you want to make sure that if someone pulls it up in 10 years, it's still good. I'd say that's probably the biggest challenge. My question for you now, speaking of marketing, is do you have a favorite commercial on TV right now?
Well, there's a couple. And this one, I think my wife probably wonders why she got married to me. And it's the Geico tag team commercial. French vanilla, rocky road, chocolate peanut butter cookie dough. Scoop, there it is.
I'm hoping our guest in this team can somehow remix that for us.
Every time. So it drives her nuts. But anyway, we've got a great guest today. We've got John Mulder, who is the president at 3 Seed Marketing and Design Studio, the creative geniuses behind the marketing of the Playbook podcast with Andy and Glenn, and also the marketing company for the Urconic agency. So, John, how are you today?
I'm doing very, very well. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
We appreciate you joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
The way this works, John, and you probably know because you folks do the editing, but the first half is business-focused questions. Then we have a halftime where we get to know you a little bit better. And then the second half is going to be leadership questions. So I'll kick things off with a question. Marketing has been changing at warp speed, as we all know. How does your firm stay on top of the changes?
That's a great question. Well, we do as best we can to stay ahead of what our clients may need and stay on top of new trends and things like that. The truth is that it takes a lot of money for clients to stay ahead. So what we try to do more often than not is to, take what's happening now. We use our clients' money in the best way that we possibly can to achieve their goals. But we kind of sit back and watch how things kind of evolve over time so that we're not jumping on the new trend when it's the most expensive. We're jumping on it when it's already proven itself and when the price comes down a little bit. So there are all kinds of new technologies and new techniques and things like that that are, very, very dependent on technology. Those are the ones that tend to increase the price and increase, how, it just takes a lot of money to be able to do that kind of stuff. So again, our focus at 3 Seed has always been to use our clients' finances in the best way that we possibly can to get the results that they're looking for. So, staying fresh, with new ideas is probably where we stay ahead most of the time, which is just keeping ourselves open to new experiences and, being open to new things on the horizon. So we stay current on what's going on in current events and things like that. So that we're always, staying ahead on what's conceptually different, not necessarily what's technologically different.
And so my next question has a lot to do with what you're just talking about, staying current. And, marketing is really blown up. And what I mean by that is you're no longer just taking a quick photo shoot for a billboard that's going to be there for a month, and then you got to work again, or a commercial for the radio that takes 30 seconds and you're going to play it for 3 months. Social media has changed the game in many ways. And one of them is companies have to stay more current and have to basically recycle past marketing materials faster. So for you guys, A, how's the evolution been with social media? And B, how important do you actually think it is for companies?
Well, I mean, social media, the very first form of social media was word of mouth.
True.
And
That's a good point.
It took a long time for your neighbor to tell their neighbor and their neighbor to tell their neighbor. And when you moved into, a new neighborhood, you just hang a shingle out and it said like, Mulder optometry. And you would say like, okay, well, I'm going to find business. And then I get my first customer, and that customer would then have to go tell people. So social media has kind of put that on warp speed. It's one person has an opinion and can spread it out to, hundreds, depending on how many friends you have, hundreds, thousands of people all in one shot. So the hardest thing I think for clients to understand too is that when you put that message out on social media, you may have every intent on making it yours, but as soon as you put it out there, it becomes the rest of the internet. It becomes everybody else's opinion of you. So you can only control your message so much when it comes to social media. So that's probably the most difficult thing. It's got a mind of its own. So if you've got a group of people that do not like you, they'll let everybody know. And if you have people that absolutely love what you do, they'll also let you know. So, that's controlling the message is probably the most important part if you can. So like you said, when you put that message out, it's got to be on point. It's got to be who you are. It's got to say, and stay relevant. If you say something that's off base or, not in your character, it's going to stay there for a long time.
Without a doubt. And,
yeah, that's the truth.
And like you alluding to staying current. I mean, that's been a theme so far, and we've only been on here for 5 minutes. It's just different with your reputation with social media. It, like you said, it's not the word of mouth anymore as much. It travels like that. So your reputation, both in a good way or a bad way, is accelerated. So you do got to be careful.
Well, that's
absolutely. You got to think before you talk and record.
Yeah. I tell clients that, marketing will get you where you're going faster. It'll either make you way more successful faster, or it can kill you faster. But you've got to have your business sewn up first, and then you can do the marketing.
No doubt.
Well, that's great, because that brings me to my next question. As a business owner, why is it important to work with a company like 3C to create your brand?
Well, I think that a lot of people, when they start up a business, they have exposure to marketing. They taken a class, or maybe it was a minor. Some people start a business, and they had a marketing major. Finding a company that knows what they're doing and can, help you through that process is extremely vital, simply because business owners cannot do it themselves. A lot of them are too close to their product or to their business, and they can't look at it objectively the way that a customer would. Some of you simply don't have time to do it effectively. You guys know putting together a weekly podcast is extremely time consuming. So if you're running a business and trying to do the podcasts, or trying to write blogs, you're trying to make your social media updates, you're trying to design ads, you're trying to, coordinate your media buys, you're trying to do all of the things that go along with the marketing in addition to running your business, it's extremely difficult. But in doing so too, you've got to find a company that shares your core values. That's extremely key. So, that you want to approach their business the way that they want to approach their business. If you, the way that the company feels when you go into their office and walk around and talk with them, it's got to be in sync with who you are as a company as well. So your marketing company and whatever your business happens to be should share that same set of core values.
That's great. It kind of reminds me of a movie. Tom Hanks was in it. I forget the name of the movie, but he was worked for a marketing company, and the owner of an airline said, I want to promote that we've never had an accident in 25 years. And Tom Hanks said, well, if you're going to do that, you can find another marketing company, because the way I see it, you're about due. And it just really opened my eyes to the fact that you really need to have that 30,000 foot view, which usually is not you that's able to do that. You got to get outside of that. So that's a real great point.
So, John, you mentioned earlier that you want to stay current without necessarily always getting in on the marketing trend while it's the most expensive, right? So what do you envision being the next great marketing trend that we're going to see maybe in the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's because this stuff changes so rapidly. I'll say what the trend is, and then it'll be a trend that is in the rearview mirror as opposed to in the windshield. So I believe that probably the next trend, we're seeing bits and pieces of it, is personalized marketing, so that the ads that you see or the messages that you're served are going to be directly targeted to you and to your likes. The twist, however, is that it's going to be anticipatory. So we've created this AI network and this computer learning about our, what we like and what we don't like, and what works and what doesn't work, all that kind of stuff. I think that we will start to be served ads based on probably where we are or our last purchase, or all those kinds of things that will be actually be timely. That'll say, hey, it's time to buy this thing, or you need to do this thing, or you need to respond essentially before we need it. So that we will be served an ad while we're at, where we're at the grocery store for a product that they know that we've purchased, 2 months ago, and it should be running out about now. So that when we're walking through the store, it's like, oh, here it is. So, things like, point of purchase, when you walk by a kiosk and the kiosk knows that you purchased their product, 3 months ago, and it's time again to say like, hey, over here, you can, if you scan this now, you can save a coupon now, or, that kind of thing. So it's that kind of stuff, because there's nothing worse than getting served ads that don't mean anything to you. And those are the ones that are annoying. And that's why everybody says, oh, I hate ads. It's the TV commercial that comes on that has nothing to do with you. And he's like, I don't want to, I hate that ad. You're like, well, why do you hate that ad? Because it doesn't pertain to me. But when you're served ads that pertain to you, they work, and they mean much, much more. Part of the problem though with AI is that you become homogenous, that you keep getting the same ads served over and over and over, and you never really broaden your horizon. So I purposely try to trick the AI and start to look at all kinds of different things, just so that I get a wide variety of ads served to me, so I can see them. I mean, some of that's a bit kind of what I do for a living. So I like to see it. But I also like new experiences and new products and things. So
great point.
There's a documentary on Netflix. I want to say it's called The Social Dilemma, maybe, but basically it talks about kind of how much your phone or your internet, or they know about you just based on anything you've searched. So obviously, like you're talking about, that technology and the ability to know, like, I was just at Home Depot buying, paint, even if they don't know when that paint runs out, but just the ability in 3 months to say, just get an alert, you purchased paint. Are you running out? Here's a coupon for, Bear or whatever that is. That would be useful compared to The Social Dilemma, I think it was called, which scares the daylights out of you, because like, how much do they really know about you? There is useful things with technology. But anyways, with that, I can go on a rant all day about it. We are to halftime, and halftime is fun. The way we do it here, it's a speed round. Keep it as quick as you can, but if you have explanations, we thoroughly enjoy it. Me and Glenn could even have a follow-up question depending on your answer, but it's 10 questions, speed round, completely unrelated to business for the most part, unless there's something, I on the side we'd like to know in relation to marketing per se. But it's a speed round, gives the people a chance to know more about John Mulder. Are you ready for the speed round?
I am. Fire away.
All right. First car you ever owned, year, make, model, color preferred.
1976 Volkswagen Beetle. It was beige and later repainted to become a nice champagne pink.
There you go. So out here in Pennsylvania, what do you guys call? Did you guys do the when you
Punch
saw a
bug.
bug, you hit somebody?
Yep, punch bug. And when I drove one, it was just the constant pummeling of the person in the shotgun seat.
Yep. So in Michigan, we called it slug bug.
Okay.
So when I came out here, my wife would say punch bug, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So anyways, all right. What is your biggest fear?
I mean, I guess a fear of losing my faculties, because I rely on my brain for my job, and I think that's probably my biggest fear is if that were to slip.
Yeah, that's very scary. All right, favorite book or podcast, either one.
I guess I'll go do the podcast. My favorite podcast is The Moment with Brian Koppelman. It's a podcast where they talk about the kind of like the creative inspiration and that moment when you kind of have a breakthrough. So it's really, really good. They've talked to all kinds of musicians and artists and writers and all kinds of stuff. So
that does sound good. Where do you find that on? Do you find it on any of the podcast platforms?
Yeah, I get it through my iTunes podcast.
Okay. All right. What is favorite line from a movie?
All right. I guess there are two. One is an old one and one is a new one. My all-time favorite, probably for the most of my career, has been "We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams." It's from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And then just recently, my new favorite one is, "But what is grief if not love persevering?" And that was on WandaVision.
I haven't seen that. Who's in that?
I'm going to start watching that. I'm looking forward to that.
It's on Disney Plus. It's a Marvel series.
Okay.
It's, 9 episodes.
Cool. Good answers. All right. What's your favorite song of all time?
Well, as a Rush fan, I would have to pick Tom Sawyer, but really anything off of Moving Pictures is phenomenal.
Great album.
Name your favorite cocktail.
If I go to a bar or a restaurant, I usually get a well-crafted old fashioned.
I was going to guess that. I was between that or Manhattan. You seemed like
it's a Mad Men thing, I think.
I do like the cocktails that you make on your website there. I saw
my Valentine's Day.
Some good stuff.
As a master brewer, what's your favorite beer style?
I really enjoy a Bohemian Pilsner.
Okay.
It's a little bit different than normal, but it's a little dark, but it's a little bitter and it's a little sweet. That's my sweet spot.
That's a sweet spot. I like it. All right. This is what I'm excited for. There's many slogans that you hear over and over and over. And I love the creative side of slogans. You have the "What's in your wallet?" You have "America runs on Dunkin'." Do you have an all-time favorite slogan that you just felt captured the moment and was so creative, maybe so simple, but just it nailed it?
Yeah. I guess I love when a tagline or a slogan has a double meaning to it, when it has layers, like an onion. So it's there were two that really jumped off of the board that I saw when I saw it, and I was like, I wish I would have written that. One was for Red Lobster, and at the time it was "Seafood Differently," and it was beautiful. SEAFOOD. But again, the play with the words, when you hear it, it's SEE, food differently. So they wanted to get the message out that that they were a place that you could come and have a good meal, because they're not one of the ones that you usually think about. And It was seafood differently, and I just thought that was brilliant. The other one was for LL Bean. And I think they still currently use it. It's "Be an Outsider." So it's BE space AN outsider, but it's also Bean. So I thought I saw it and I was like, that's awesome. That's right. That's awesome.
I love it. I've looked at lists of the top 100 slogans. I find them fascinating because they can seem so simple, yet a brain like mine would never be able to possibly come up with them. So that's why there's people like you in the world, John. All right. What would scare you more? Okay.
Mhm.
Say I don't know what your house looks like, so this is merely a guess, but you're sitting in your backyard, maybe grilling some food. Your family's all inside. We'll do that. You're grilling up some steaks, and you see a bear walk in your backyard, 20 yards away. Other note is you're up to about your waist in the ocean. Your family's all on the beach. I'm not putting your family in harm. And the shark is 20 yards away from you. You can just see the fin. It's far enough where you think you can mosey out. Which one would honestly make your heart drop more?
I would say the shark, simply because I swim like a jellyfish. So I could not get away. The bear, I could probably chuck one of the steaks and run for it the other direction.
Yeah, right.
That's true. That's true. I gave you ammo there. All right. Would it be the same answer if I gave you a water balloon filled with blood that you could have thrown near the shark to occupy him for a little bit? All right. Moving on. Would you go to jail for a year for $1 million? It means when you get out of jail, it's like it didn't happen. Your job is fine. Your reputation is intact. Jail for a year for $1 million. Would you go? I can't promise you. I can't promise you your jail experience is good, but I can promise you. I can promise you when you get out, you have $1 million and no one knows the wiser.
You know, I love life entirely too much to give up an entire year of it, regardless of the money. So I maybe I should love money a bit more than I do, but I prefer life.
See, I'd come home and say the same answer, and my wife would have my bags packed, say, see you in a year.
Well, yeah, that's not the question. I'll send you you can spend time in jail.
Exactly. Right. All right. Well, that was great. Good job with the halftime. We always enjoy that. All right. But we're moving on because we got to get a few more, questions that pertain to the podcast in here. So we're going to focus on leadership and maybe some of your experiences. So
sure.
There are many aspects of marketing. As a leader, how do you manage the creative part of the process with maybe marketing analytics?
Oh, that's another great question.
Because it's kind of like you want to be creative and do something, but then there's does this actually work? There's the want and the have to.
Yeah. Well, both of those need to respect one another in what we do. We'd mentioned AI before, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence helps us understand, but it cannot replace creative thought. And there's a story that recently that they tried using AI to write a script, but it simply just can't. Like it doesn't understand the nuances of art and language. So the creative part is extremely, extremely fragile and also very, very special. So we can't let, analytics kind of overshadow that. But in the same regard, I can't just create something just for art's sake that's not going to work. So that's one of the reasons why I love advertising so much, is that you can play in both of those arenas, and they do have to play nicely in the sandbox together. So balance is really the key. With anything in life, that you have spend the same amount of time thinking creatively as we do strategically.
Great answer.
All right. Well, as a risk manager, it's really important to us to have employee retention. So obviously that stems from a good corporate culture. How important is it for 3Seed? Your slogan is living our brand daily. I love what you do, and how you enhance your employees and all the things that you do. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. With us, as it was with all of our clients, your brand needs to drive every single decision that you make. So every communication, every interaction, every employee that you have on staff, the colors of your office and the way it's decorated, how you answer the phone, all those things serve to protect your brand, because we had mentioned before that, with social media and the way that advertising works now, is that you don't get to control it. Everybody else decides who you are and what you are. The only thing that you can do is communicate, is kind of you affect that communication that you have going outward. So every single thing that you do has to be on brand, and it cannot waver from that. If you do, you become inauthentic and people don't understand, or, confuses them, and they're not quite sure that, you are who they're getting or who they're hearing about. So, if the question is, how do you do that? It's just make sure that every single thing that you do is on brand. That's the, it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and it seems like you allow everybody to be an individual in your company, which is great. If you look at your website, everybody, their interests and things like that. So
it was funny when you guys asked me to be on this podcast, and I was like, I am probably one of the farthest thing from what I would consider would be like a leader. I've not written books, and that kind of stuff. But then I started thinking about, no, you know what? I am a leader because I let people be who they are. I'm not micromanaged in them. I let them kind of, explore and do, because I realized too that this company is not going to be, it can't be because of me, because I'm going to end way before the company's going to end. So I've got to, enable people to kind of like take up that mantle and be able to do the job that I do and do it better than I can do it, so that it continues on past me. So
you're absolutely a leader. And what you just said proves the point of being a leader, because, not every leader fits into the box of the high school head coach on any movie you can find, that like they all kind of fit into the same thing. Like that's not how leadership really works. But all right. So being risk managers, as Glenn mentioned, a lot of times we try and help our clients with safety protocols, and might come up with a safety program or risk ideas for them to follow, right? And I can tell you that they're only going to work if they completely buy in, and there's constant communication, and there's constant, checkpoints, and they're bought into it. Otherwise, it's, hey, this was the plan and action we had for you. Right. You followed none of it. You can't necessarily come back at us and say, why did I have so many claims this year? That whole thing. So do you prefer companies as a marketing company? Do you prefer when your companies say, Jesus, take the wheel, do your thing? Or do you prefer constant communication and constant ideas? Because like you said, the reason I think this could be different than us is because you've mentioned earlier, you said, sometimes in marketing, the companies are too close and too attached to what they do. So in my head, I'm thinking maybe it is a Jesus take the wheel situation where you guys just handle it.
Yeah. If, we used to fight for creative control over all this stuff, and it butted heads with a lot of business owners because they don't want to give that up. So we kind of pivoted and decided that, okay, you know what, we're going to be, on your team with you. We're going to go through this with you. But you're going to have to respect us, and we're going to have to respect you. So, as long as, and I think I mentioned it before, as long as those core values are consistent with you and your client, it'll work, because you value the same things. I don't mind being challenged. I like being challenged. But I'll also challenge our clients too. Say like, hey, you need to, try this other thing, or you need to do this differently than you've been doing it. And they'll ask, they'll say like, can you give me some reason why, and give me some statistics and those kinds of things. And it's my job to be able to do that, to come back and say, yeah, here's why, here's some experiences that we've had before. Probably the worst clients we have are the ones that are, constantly in control and control freakish. But it gets in the way of the creative process though. That's why, it has nothing to do with that we're trying to fool you or pull the wool over your eyes. It has everything to do with that. It just gets in the way of the creative process. So, I don't know. There's a concept of that, but it's, that's basically it.
There's definitely, I'm sure, some give and take, but at the end of the day, you're probably sitting there like, hey, you hired us because this is what we specialize in. So we can control the brand you want to portray, but when it comes to the artistic side of it, there's got to be a little faith, I'm guessing.
Yeah, there has to be a little execution on their part as well.
Well, because there is no right and wrong way to do this stuff. That's what's tricky. It's way easier to do something, either You build it and it runs properly, or you build it and it doesn't run. I know which company I'm going to hire.
Right.
And when it comes to advertising, there is no right or wrong. It'll all kind of work as long as you keep moving the ball down the field. If you don't, if you stop and say like, okay, well, we're going to stop that and do it a different way. I mean, it's kind of like why our we named our company 3 Seed for that. That was one of the reasons, was that we tell these stories about seeds all the time, and that you put the seeds in the ground and you have to give it time to grow. The worst farmer ever is the one that plants the carrots, and after 3 days digs them up to see how it's going. You have to let them sit and wait, and then determine whether or not it's been a success. And if it's not, then we'll change tact.
Love it. I love it. Well, hey, with that, we are actually moving on to our last question. We call it the Hail Mary question because it's our last of the podcast, last of the game. Go back to 22-year-old John Mulder. Okay. You have all the experience you have now. You have all the, wisdom, we'll say, you have now. What advice would you give 22-year-old yourself if you had to, say anything?
I guess the piece of advice would be to not strive for perfection. That seems kind of like counterintuitive, but striving for perfection when it comes to creativity is extremely crippling. There's this concept of wabi-sabi, and wabi-sabi is it celebrates imperfections. Basically, it's these people make these bowls and then they break them on purpose and reassemble them. And they find that the beauty is in the reassembling of it, that it's not perfect. So getting back to what I said before, we're going to try some things, and if it doesn't work, we're going to just change and try again. But there is no perfect. If you continue to strive for perfect and creative work, you'll never achieve it.
I love it because
great.
Your industry, that hits a home run, where some other industries it might not. And that's what makes us great. And that's what makes this podcast awesome, is because we hear all different styles and all different, words of advice that aren't always online with, somebody else you're talking to.
Yeah. I got to look up wabi-sabi, right?
Yep. Wabi-sabi. W-A-B.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote it down. So I'm ready.
Wabi-sabi.
Every time we do this, I get something I write down. So that's awesome. I'd like to thank John Mulder from 3 Seed for joining us today. And I'd like to give you a little platform now to tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you.
Probably the best place to start is to go to our website. It's 3seedmarketing.com. If you're looking for our phone number, it's 484-646-9300. There's some information you can find out about us, and you can certainly contact us. We're a small company, so generally speaking, if you call and leave a message or send an email or contact form, it'll be me or one of my 2 business partners that will reach out to you and talk to you and see where we can start. But it's really, there's no company that's too small and no company that's too large. There's always something that we can do to help you in your business.
Phenomenal.
Well, that's great. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Please comment and share. My name's Glenn Amaral.
I'm Andy Phillips.
Till next time, what's in your playbook?